Okay, so now we have a web project up and running and we know we can serve any JSON object. We move on to very interesting part of our application, and that part is called REST. Now before even we talk about REST, let's ask a question to ourselves. Do we know how any web application works, or how a mobile application works? Let's say there is a company named, okay, let's take example of Google itself. So Google has a Google Drive, which is Google Drive is a web app as well as Google Drive, sorry, it is web application as well as it is a mobile application. And if you take other examples, Google Gmail, or we take Facebook, then every application these days that companies are writing, they have both web front end and mobile front ends. Now typically these companies, the way they architect their applications, they don't want to have two different code bases for developing two applications. So what they do is, what approach they take is, they design one backend so that they can serve each and every request that a user is making from either web app or mobile application, that gets served from that common backend. And that common backend is mainly driven as RESTful APIs. So these serve all the data needs of web application as well as mobile applications and mobile app. So in case you are developing something which in this example we are after, so we are developing here MCQ application for users, and this application right now we will be developing a web front end, and later on we will extend it to mobile application. So we need both web app and mobile application, but in this video tutorial we'll focus only on building the backend of this application, so that later on it can be extended to any sort of front end RESTful endpoint. Now when we say that we are developing the backend, that means we are going to develop a set of APIs that front end can use, and they can start making the app, the UI functional. So we are not going to focus on the UI at all in this video series. What we are going to focus on is REST. So I hope this picture is clear, what part of application we are building and why we are building it in an API form rather than having the UI in the front end and the back end and front end and back end integrated together. So this gives us more flexibility and more scale going forward. Now REST stands for representational state transfer. So this is a set of guidelines which if we follow, then we can build scalable applications. So we can say scalable, robust, and reliable applications. So that is the de facto these days, that we will build RESTful APIs, and then it comes around like a lot of technologies around it, lot of things that are built on top of RESTful APIs. So if we search online, then if we say Uber RESTful, sorry, this should be Uber. So Uber is developing a lot of endpoints these days, that so this is developer platform of Uber that is going to be used by Windows 4 Cortana, which is the client there. Then these APIs are being used by Amazon for Amazon Echo, and a lot of scenarios are being created around this. And when we come to this site, we will see that it describes their RESTful API. Uber API, for most part, a REST API is, we are not here to debate the semantic of REST, but we try to adhere to as possible as to the practice. So they are kind of implementing these APIs which a lot of other people can consume, and they can build nice experiences around Uber API. So this is kind of response that Uber API, one of the Uber API sends, and then they describe their endpoints. So this lists the products. So this is the version 1 API where it lists the products of Uber. So if we click this, not sure if this is authenticated. So yeah, there are the products, then this is the product ID, these are the price details, so this is the image. So ultimately a mobile app or a web app can get this response, and they can render it on their screen because all the data is provided. So when we say we are developing a web API, it's kind of, if we are coming from a background of C, Java, these procedural or object-oriented programming language, then we understand the concept of functions. Now functions are pieces of code which kind of combine a lot of instructions in them, and we can, every time we can reuse, we can call those functions. So those statements that we write in the form of functions, they are reusable. Now when we write functions, they are part of our code, and consumer is also our code. So one code file has functions and their consumers. But if we talk about web API, we will say these are functions on web. That means from our application, we can call a function over a website and we can get the response back, and this is called REST API or web API. So REST is a form of is one means of achieving web API. There is another possible way to develop web APIs, that is called SOAP. So we are not going into the details of RESTful or SOAP, but REST kind of in nutshell, it's a way for us to create, for a way for us to write functions which are called web APIs. So we will also be developing the web APIs like this, where each API will have a URL. It will tell what type of API it is. It is get, post. So there are a few types of APIs. We'll write that now, because REST web APIs are built on top of HTTP protocol, and that's why they work on the semantics of HTTP. So there will be get type of API, there will be post type of API, there will be patch, then there will be put, then there is get, post, put, and there is a delete. So these are mainly the APIs that we will be dealing with. Let me see if there is something that I have left around. All these things that we are talking about, these are HTTP command types. So if we go there, HTTP methods we can say, then we see get, post, yeah, so there is head as well. Okay, get is there, then there will be post, head, put, delete, okay, trace, connect, lot of other things are there, but mainly for the RESTful APIs, these will suffice our need. So mainly we will be writing functions which will represent CRUD operations, so which is create, retrieve, update, and delete. So creation is done through post. So this is mainly, this matches in the CRUD scenario, it matches to create a resource. That is where we use post API. Get API typically is used for retrieval. Then patch and put are mainly to make updates. So this is kind of full update, and patch is used for partial update. And then there is delete, this is for deleting. So all the four CRUD acronyms have been covered here. Delete a resource. Fair. So this is built on HTTP. Now whenever we make a function call on web, whenever we call a web API, then we send an HTTP request to the server, and what we get back is an HTTP response. Now if we try to map this knowledge that we have gained to the server that we created, then this will look more meaningful. So what we did is we did a hash include kind of stuff for express. So here we are saying that we are referencing the express in our application. Then we created an object of express. So this is the express app object. Then we are saying on this app, if somebody calls get, so this is kind of a RESTful API. If somebody comes and says get slash, then the URL for that API is slash, and the method using which we are calling is get. Then what should we do is we should be returning a response. So when we get this slash, here we are getting request and response objects together. Now request object will contain the details of request that we send. So far we have not sent any parameters to the request, and response we are sending back using response file. So typically when we send a request using post or using get, request can contain parameters. So here we'll write request may contain parameters for this for web API, and same way the response that we send back contains certain responses. Response may contain JSON, it may contain file, it may contain message, and along with this very important thing that a response gets is it is HTTP response code, and this response code is very useful when we talk about developing the API. So for now, this is good enough to know that what are the commands on HTTP, and because we'll be using this knowledge to develop our upcoming RESTful APIs, and these are the functions exposed on the web that we call web API or RESTful API. So this is where we'll stop this discussion, and in next video we'll talk about more about these RESTful API endpoints, what are their response codes. So we'll kind of begin with the requirement gathering for the project that we are building, which is MCQ applications backend. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next part.